So, hello and welcome to today's episode of Hear Us Out. On today's episode, we are going to be doing a bit of myth busting. We're going to compare some of the perceptions that our mentors might have prior to joining the scheme with the actual reality of what it's like to be part of a scheme like this, where you're discussing such deep and quite profound topics. So today we've got Victoria, who's a pretty unique mentor in the sense that she is the only one who's done the scheme twice. She is now in her second year at this university. And let's dive in and hear what she has to say. Why did you get involved with the scheme?
So initially, I think it was just something that was really intriguing. It's not something that you sort of see every day, especially on like a job post. I think when I was thinking about jobs to apply for, I was assuming I was just going to get like a barista role or some type of like cafe or restaurant or something like that. And I saw this and I was like, this could be really meaningful and really impactful. And I was desperate. I was like, I want to be part of that. Wouldn't that be so cool? And I think that was sort of the base of it. But actually, before it was a job, there was the little focus groups. And you know what? I think the monetary incentive that maybe might have played a bigger role than I would like to admit. But oh my gosh, like if I could just describe the atmosphere there and just like discussing topics like this, I didn't realize how much passion I had for it and how much I really actually had to say. But yeah, like everyone was super lovely and it was like understanding these different points of view. And I think for a long time, maybe I thought that I was the only one who had that. So it was sort of like reaffirming that actually this is something that we can actually change and people are looking to change that. So there's hope, you know, and it's the biggest motivator for change. So I think actually participating in that focus group really pushed me forward into applying for the job.
Wow, that's beautiful. So obviously you did your first year and then you came back again for a second year. So what was it that you really enjoyed your first year that made you think, yeah, I want to do that again?
I think one really important thing is that kind of like I said with the focus groups, there's so much to say, honestly. And I felt that the first year that I did this, I had so much more I wanted to say. Every conversation, we had like sort of an hour slot. And I was like, guys, I don't want to leave. I want to talk more. And I also felt that it had a therapeutic sort of aspect to it too. I felt that I was actually being listened to and it was sort of a dedicated time to do that. Yeah, I just felt there was so much more that I wanted to say. There was so much change that I wanted to still be a part of. So I think that was a main driver for me to continue into the second year of doing that.
If you were speaking to a lecturer who was interested in taking part in a scheme like this, but wasn't quite sure as to how impactful it would be, what would you tell them?
In those big meetings when the students aren't really there, making sure that we have a voice. Making sure that when they're deciding, okay, these are the deadlines for the year, but actually Ramadan's in this time frame, so let's maybe change that so that they actually have a fair chance. People aren't going to be able to put in the same amount of effort as our white peers because we're like busy with all these other things. Like, you would never have a piece of coursework that's due on Christmas, for example, because everyone knows that's a holiday. Education isn't absolutely everything. And so it's just about keeping that in mind. And if we have someone in those meetings, when certain topics arise, and they can sort of think back to our conversation and they're like, oh yeah, actually, I remember this was a concern. Let me input that and try and change that.
So obviously the scheme has like really empowered the staff to kind of be that voice for students. But what do you think, because obviously it's a reciprocal mentoring scheme, what do you think that you got from your staff mentors? Like what did you learn over the 2 years?
Gosh, lecturers are human too. They actually have families too. They can't always reply to emails like as soon as. I think we need to cut them a bit more slack is what I'm really trying to say.
Yeah, no, that's lovely that there's kind of like this sense of mutual understanding, I guess, that comes out of this scheme. Lecturers understanding students from different and diverse backgrounds better. And then students also just understanding that their lecturers are people. So yeah, it's really quite beautiful. What would you say is a key thing to remember for anyone going into a scheme like this?
Impact and not intention. It's about how it impacts a person rather than the intention of what you're saying.
I think that's a really beautiful takeaway. Yeah, key learning for all of us.
I know that was a really big concern for me because I didn't want them to feel offended or attacked, because I think when these conversations happen, that's sort of what goes on, like one either side of the party sort of feel attacked or offended, and then it goes completely downhill. And especially looking at the dynamic, I mean, it's a senior member of staff. Like, when are you really going to have a conversation with these types of people? You know what I mean? And especially it was my first year and I was like, I do not know anything at all. I think was something that I was a bit afraid of.
And on that topic of fear, what were some of your fears going into this scheme?
I was also afraid that I was going to feel small. I thought that they might ask me questions and that I might feel pressured to sort of say something, or not even necessarily say the truth, but say something that they want me to say. There's always these stereotypes. And since we were paired with white staff members, so I felt that they might have a specific stereotype when it came to like my experiences. And so maybe whatever I said wasn't sort of fitting with that, and they might try and sort of question it or kind of go about it like, yeah, but XYZ. And that was a big fear of mine, honestly.
Yeah.
I was like, no, like, please, like, this is just really what happened. Like, I'm not trying to add anything more. You have all these fears and all these anxieties about how the meetings are going to go. It's in a closed-off space. It's just you and your mentor. I think this is actually why I ended up mentioning in that focus group how I preferred there would be 2 student mentors and then 1 staff member, because this was something I knew that would fit. Because if it's just you in a room by yourself, no one else, like that puts fear in me. That really puts fear in me. So if there's someone else that I know, okay, I got your back, you got my back. Like, and it's also just if you had sort of an experience like that affirmation, like just even if it was just a small nod, like I know what you mean by that.
Yeah. So as the scheme kicked off, did you find that your fears were founded, or did you find that your fears were dispelled quite quickly?
Honestly, those are just fears and anxiety. Like the student that's with you doing this mentor scheme, just their presence massively help. Like that reduces the fear a lot. But yeah, like honestly, everyone who's participating in this scheme has been through rigorous training. They've been like through a highly selective process. Everyone who's participating in the scheme wants to be there. They want to induce a change. They're listening to you with a purpose. Actually listening to you for one, and secondly, using what you're saying and making change. And that's what's really, really important. That's something that I think gives the whole scheme structure and integrity. So I think lots of the fears I had went away by the first meeting. By the first meeting, I was like, I want to meet these people again. Why is it only once a week? I want it twice a week. Please. After that meet and greet, I was like, oh, it was a bit more of a relax. And then after the first meeting, shoulders all the way down. I'm like, yeah, like this is great. Massive, massive support from the team. And also just, I think from the meet and greet, usually the staff members like, guys, like if I say anything, like please stop me. Like I don't mean to offend anyone. I think sometimes the staff is like very hyper aware. And I think that also just, I mean, it's kind of like we're all laughing about it, like, oh, don't be silly. But in the back of my head, I'm like, thank God they said that, because it's sort of like their own recognition, their own humility, their own recognizing that they can make mistakes. And I think I'm glad that you said that.
So has this scheme practically affected your life in any way? Is there anything that you find yourself doing differently, perhaps, as a result of taking part?
Gosh, I want to say everything, really. I've sort of, in a weird way, I've gained a friend, if that makes sense. I've gained someone that I could go to for advice. And I'm actually meeting one of my previous mentors tomorrow. We're going to have a little reunion, so that's going to be really nice. I've gained connections. gained understanding of behind the scenes, how lecturers go about making their own lectures, their own concerns with like student attendance, and sort of the curriculum and stuff like that, what students actually want. Because I think there's a gap between students and lecturers, and that gap sort of widened in COVID with online learning, and it's sort of now people don't really go to lectures, and lecturers feel sort of a more disconnect with the student body, and so it's more difficult for them to really understand what the students are gonna be excited to come to a lecture for. What do they want to learn, really?
Yeah.
Obviously, the employability skills I've gained, my communication skills, for example, massively increased. I can now say that I've mentored someone above my, what do I say, status. But yeah, like that's something a bit cool to say, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, don't really get many opportunities to do that. But all very impactful business.
Well, that's all we have for today. So thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Hear Us Out.